Have you ever really stopped to think about what happens to your money after you drop it off at the bank? We're about to pull back the curtain on the whole system, and trust me, the answer is way more interesting than you think.
All right, so we all do it. You deposit your paycheck, you open a savings account, and you just trust that the bank is keeping your money safe and sound. But what is it actually doing with your cash the moment you walk out the door? Well, that's where the real story begins.
To really get your head around modern banking, you have to go back to a time when it was actually two totally separate businesses. Think about it like this. On one hand, you had a warehouse, literally a vault for your stuff. And on the other, you had a completely different investment business. They were like two different companies.
So let's dive into how these two sides of the bank used to work. Because once you understand this super simple foundation, you'll see just how much things have changed.
Okay, so that warehousing job, it was dead simple. Imagine your money is a pile of gold. You don't want to lug it around, right? So you'd pay a bank a small fee to lock it up in their super secure vault. And in return, they'd give you a certificate, basically a receipt that proved the gold was yours. That's it, a storage service.
Now, the other business was lending. This is what we call a time deposit. This is where you'd agree to lock your money up for a specific amount of time, maybe 6 months, maybe even longer. The key is you couldn't touch it. And in exchange for that promise, the bank paid you interest because they knew they could safely lend that specific money out without you showing up tomorrow asking for it back. And this simple setup had this really elegant, almost beautiful, self-correcting system at its core. It was this natural force that kept the whole economy in balance, kind of like a seesaw for interest rates.
Here's how it worked. When people weren't saving a lot, banks needed more cash to lend out. So what do? They crank up interest rates to make saving more attractive. But when everybody was saving and banks were swimming in cash, they do the opposite. They've lowered the rates, which was a big signal to everyone, hey, stop saving so much. It's time to go spend some money.
So the crucial thing to get here is that interest rates weren't just some made-up numbers. They were a real, honest signal about what the community was doing. It was the economy's pulse, telling everyone when it was time to save and build for the future and when it was time to enjoy the stuff we'd already produced.
So for a while, this two-part system worked pretty well. The warehouse on one side, the investment house on the other. But then some bankers got let's say, a very clever idea. An idea that would change the entire game and create what we could call banking's big secret.
And this brings us to the million-dollar question. What about all that money that isn't locked away for a fixed time? The money in your checking account, the cash you were just paying the bank to warehouse for you, the money you fully expect to be there, all of it, whenever you want it.
And here it is. Here's the secret. The banks started lending that money out too. This is the whole idea behind fractional reserve banking. The bank is basically making a bet, a gamble really, that not everyone is going to come asking for their warehoused money back at the exact same time. So they keep just a little bit, a fraction, on hand and lend out the rest.
And just to give you an idea of how big this bet is, check out this ratio. It's often around 10 to 1. That means for every $10 you deposit into your checking account, the bank might only be required to hold on to one single dollar. The other 9? Yeah, they're not in the vault. They're loaned out.
Okay, so you can probably see how this system is built on pretty shaky ground. I mean, what happens if too many people get nervous and ask for their money back all at once? Well, to manage this new, risky reality, a very powerful new player has to enter the game. And this player changes all the rules. This is the central bank.
This quote really gets to the core of the central bank's incredible power. It can literally create new money out of nothing and inject it straight into the banking system. The source we're looking at calls these fake savings. It's money that shows up in the system, but nobody actually had to save it.
And the effect this has is massive. Remember our nice, balanced interest rate seesaw? The central bank can basically just walk over and sit on one side, holding it down. It can force interest rates to be low, sending that signal to spend and invest, even if the community hasn't actually done the real saving to back it up. So this new combination, fractional reserves plus a central bank, it creates a system that has instability baked right into its DNA. So let's talk about the risks, like bank runs, and the rescues designed to keep the whole thing from collapsing.
The number one risk is the classic bank run. And really, it's all about confidence. A rumor starts, a few people get spooked, so they run to the bank to pull out their cash. Then other people see them and they get spooked. And pretty soon, everyone is demanding their money at once. Money the bank doesn't have because it's all been loaned out. It's the definition of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And this isn't some old-timey movie plot. It was real, and it happened all the time. American history, especially in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, is just littered with these massive economy-wrecking banking panics.
So why was the system so jumpy back then? Well, a big part of the reason was that there were thousands of small independent banks. Every single time you wrote a check to someone at a different bank, actual physical money had to be moved from one vault to another. It created this constant, fragile flow of cash that could get disrupted really, really easily.
So, to fix all this chaos, the central bank stepped in to act as a referee for the whole system. It took on 3 main jobs. First, it guaranteed that checks between different banks would always clear. Second, it became the lender of last resort, ready to give emergency cash to a bank that was in trouble. And third, it started setting and enforcing the reserve rules for everybody.
So there you have it. The system we use today isn't really one single thing. It's like a layer cake. At the bottom, you have that simple, honest warehouse. Then, on top of that, we stack the risky but profitable idea of fractional reserves. And then, we put the massive central bank on top of the whole thing to act as a safety net.
And all of that leaves us with one final, kind of mind-bending question. If the bank is only holding on to $1 for every 10 you have on deposit, what exactly are the other $9? What is most of the money in our bank accounts today? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in to This Explainer.